Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you big ticket kitchen items that I think are worth the price. So if you enjoyed this type of content and other homeschool and lifestyle content, please remember to subscribe and let's get into it. All right, so this video is a little bit different than the normal like homeschool type of content you see from me. And the reason why is I spent a lot of time in the kitchen. My kids spend a lot of time in the kitchen. And I'm a mom of 6. We homeschool. And our days are kind of busy, but they also revolve around the kitchen a lot. And so having good appliances and good, like smaller appliances is important to me. And I would consider myself kind of in the middle of being minimalistic and maximalistic. Is that a word? In the kitchen. I don't like to have all the just crazy little gadgets for everything, but there's a few things that I just really love that I think are worth the money and that are time saving, that produce really good food and things like that. So that's kind of what I'm gonna be sharing with you today from my perspective of how we function well in the kitchen, how we get cooking done, how we produce good food, and all while trying to homeschool and juggle 6 kids. One more thing before I forget to mention, these things are obviously not necessary. A lot of them are not necessary. And it really depends on your lifestyle. If you are not ones to be in the kitchen a lot and cooking, then maybe a lot of these things won't apply to you. But if you are, then maybe they will be helpful. And I don't necessarily have great brands or anything. There's several things that I have that we've had for years and they just continue to work. And so I haven't got new ones. Sometimes my husband pretends like if I'm like drop something on accident, he's like, oh no, you're trying to get a new one, you know, like, or the kid, I let a kid play with it, not on purpose most of the time. He's always makes the joke that I'm just trying to get a new one. I'm seeing if like, oh, here, break this so we can get a better one or a newer version or whatever. So I haven't actually done that. I don't think for real, like there's been accidents that have happened, but there's some things that are a little bit newer and then some things I've had for a really long time that still work well enough that I have kept them. So there's a variety of things. So we'll just get into it and I'll start talking about it. Okay, the first thing I wanted to mention, which I did bring in to show you, is a food processor. This thing is surprisingly heavy. This motor is really heavy. This is something I have had for 12 and a half years. It was a like baby shower gift when my oldest, like before he was born, to blend up food for babies and stuff. And I love this. This is a Cuisinart. I think there's like a newer model. And there's a few things like the lid has gotten a little bit broken, but the latch still works, so it'll still turn on. So I haven't gotten a new one. And it also has the attachment, I didn't bring it in, for the lid that you can grate cheese or carrots or dice, you know, it has a few different attachments if you wanted to dice some different things that you like push them down and do it that way. I don't use that nearly as much as I just use the normal one. And I use it honestly a lot now for like pie crust. I like doing like Oreo or graham cracker crust. So that's what I use it for most of the time. It's also really good at just getting really good purees. And so I like it for those things. And if you needed to make a whole bunch of baby food, I go back and forth between the blender and between this because some things are better in the food processor and some things are better in the blender. It just kind of depends. Like the food processor does a little bit better with more minimal liquid than the blender. The blender needs more liquid to work well. And so that's why this works well for crusts and things like that. Even a like butter pie crust, I do in here most of the time because it's just faster, it's just easier. You know, you can get the butter like all chopped up and spread throughout it by just doing the, what's it called, the pulse button on here. Right here, there's a pulse and then there's an on button. And I just really love it. It has lasted us a really long time. Like I said, it still works. It's something I still use fairly consistently. And so that's my first thing I would recommend. My next appliance recommendation is a KitchenAid. KitchenAids are very pricey. Usually you can find some sort of sale at like Costco or Sam's Club, which is how we got our first one. We're on our second one now. The first one lasted just over 10 years, I think, before the motors stopped working. And I used it a lot. And now I did not bring it in here. That thing is heavy. I have like a matte black one and I really love it. And mine has the bigger bowl. It has like the drop down handle instead of just the where you turn the bowl like in the base. And so it's a bigger bowl, which I think is really good for a big family. Because if I'm like making large batches or need to double something or batches of bread, you know, like you need a bigger bowl because it's already coming out the top even when I have the bigger bowl. And so I really like the big one. I've used the small one at like my in-laws' house, but I haven't ever owned the smaller one. And so I just like the big one. But I use it all the time, like all the time. It's probably one of my most used appliances outside of like the stove. And I just pull it out for making bread. My kids will use it for making cookies, for mixing protein bites. I shared a recipe recently about protein bites. All those things, I use my KitchenAid, and it is just so great. I love it so much. The next big ticket kitchen item that I think is worth the price is kind of silly because it's not necessarily an extra thing, at least in most houses, but it's an oven. You know, an oven stovetop combo, however it looks in your house. Sometimes ovens are separate, sometimes they're not. Ours is all the same unit. And when we moved into this house, it was only like 8 months old, and it had just a very, very cheap oven, and it drove me bonkers. But we didn't have money at the time to get a new one. And again, if you have an oven that still is working, even if it bugs you, maybe it doesn't work the best, if you don't have the money to fix it, just leave it. You know, I'm not saying go buy all these things. I'm just giving you suggestions. And so we saved money. That was one of the things I'm like, I'm saving money to buy a nice oven. And for the most part, I really like our oven. There's still, like, ideally, since I love to cook and bake, I would love like a big Viking oven. We don't have room for anything besides a standard like 30-inch, I think is the standard oven. And we don't have anything bigger unless we remodeled our kitchen, which that wouldn't be expensive at all. And so I just settled for what I got. But I love it. It has all the burners on top. It has a really big middle burner, which I don't use all the time, but it has a griddle pan that can go there if you wanted to do pancakes or whatever, just the very heavy cast iron griddle pan. The stove has convection bake and just normal, I don't know what that normal one's called, but it has both options. And so depending what we're making, I will pick which one. And it is also a smart, like, oven as far as you can connect it to your phone and the app. So if you needed to turn it on or set timers or anything like that, or see when you're not home if the oven was still on. If the burners were on, you wouldn't be able to turn them off. If the oven's on and you didn't want it to be, you can turn it off from your phone. So that was one of the things too. That wasn't like a huge selling point for me, but it was a nice point. But I just think having a good oven that works well makes baking and cooking less frustrating, right? If you're trying to bake or you want to become a baker or someone that cooks more and your oven is just not working well, it can be extremely frustrating. You can still make it work, but having something that functions well, I feel like is so helpful. And having multiple bigger burners, especially if multiple kids are cooking things, is also very helpful when you have a bigger family. So I really love our new oven. Another kitchen appliance, again, that most houses already come with is a dishwasher. And I think this is something that can make or break like your life. That makes this first world problems over here. I grew up hand washing dishes a lot. There was a point in our lives where we did not have a dishwasher for several years. When my husband and I were first married, we had one, and then we moved into an apartment that didn't. And so we didn't have one in our Connecticut house, which we lived there for 5 years. And so I got very used to hand washing dishes. And I am of the mindset, if the dishwasher does not work as well or better than me hand washing dishes, then I will just hand wash dishes. It's not worth it to me to put it in the dishwasher and not have the dishwasher work. And again, so like I said, when we moved in, a lot of the stuff in the house, since it was a newer build, just had the very low end appliances. And so over the several years later, we did get a nicer dishwasher. I believe it's a Bosch. And I'm like, I can't remember now. And I really like it. We've had very limited problems. There's always adapting to a new dishwasher and how your dishes can go in it. But it works very, very well. And when you have so many people in your family, you need a dishwasher that works really, really well. Again, it's not a make or break your life, really. You know, there are much bigger problems in the world than having a really good dishwasher. But if you are looking at places maybe to spend money, or when you're doing a kitchen, like put in a good dishwasher. You won't regret having a dishwasher that actually does its job, because then you will be doing its job. You will be doing double work because you'll load the dishwasher, have to unload it, and then still wash the dishes. So get a good dishwasher. All right, so a few other big appliance things that your house most likely won't come with when you buy it or build it or whatever, unless somebody left them behind, is a freezer, like a big freezer, and an extra fridge. So a freezer, I put this off for a really long time, and we just have the French door type of refrigerator in our kitchen, and it's counter depth, so it's not as deep, you know, as some of the other refrigerators you could get. But that's what I wanted. I didn't want it to like stick out. It wouldn't have worked in our layout anyways, because you walk by the refrigerator constantly. So we couldn't have it sticking out with like the normal depth of a refrigerator. And so we just made it work for a really long time. I'd stuff and Jenga it into the freezer and, you know, try to buy extras, but it was, again, hard to have extra meat or extra frozen things or tons of butter or whatever, you know, things you put in the freezer, because we just didn't have room for it. So I cleaned out our storeroom and organized it. This was the first time. I recently cleaned it again in like a vlog, but several years ago, I had redone the whole thing, and I was like, this is where a freezer is gonna go. And I didn't want a chest freezer. I just don't like that. I don't like digging around. I wanted a standing, like an up and down freezer. And if I could have had one that had like a small fridge and a big freezer, that's what I would have done. Like the opposite of what you usually find, because I'm like, I just need a little bit more fridge space and then lots of freezer space. But anything like that too is super expensive because most of it's more high end. So I just bought a refrigerator. I think it's General Electric, GE. That's a brand of a lot of stuff I think that we own. And then just this last year, I bought a refrigerator. It was a cheaper one. You know, it's just the freezer on top, doors on bottom, it's white. You know, it was like, it needed to be able to go in the garage, so it'd be good for really hot weather and then also really cold winters and stuff. So we were getting to a point where if we had any people over to host, I didn't have room to keep the food. Again, I was like being very like Jenga about how I put stuff in my fridge and to try to make it work. You know, with already so many people in our family, our fridge is pretty packed, especially right after we get groceries. It's like impossible to fit everything in it. And so it was already just hard. And then if we'd host anything, especially in the summertime, in the winter, I could use our garage kind of as a fridge temporarily or a freezer. But in the summer, I'm like, where am I supposed to put all this stuff? So I finally got one, and it's nice. Like sometimes it's not very full because I like to keep things cleaned out and stuff like that. But there are times when we've been hosting things, or just when we go to the grocery store and our inside fridge is super packed, and it's so nice to have the outside fridge to put some extra stuff in until we go through it that week. So even though it's not like jam-packed with stuff all the time, I still feel like it was a really good purchase, and it's been helpful and not making groceries so stressful. It was always like this whole morning ordeal trying to get everything to fit in the fridge and the freezer. So I think if you have a big family and if you have some extra money, you don't have to buy the most expensive kinds, right? And especially if people aren't gonna see them very often, it doesn't matter if they don't match everything else in your house. One of them's down in our basement, one's in our garage, you know, it doesn't matter, but they help me so much to just kind of navigate and to keep things organized, because there's space actually to keep all the food organized and for me to see what we have. So that's kind of my spiel about freezers and refrigerators. And I waited a long time to get on it. We only had one for a really, really long time, but it has been so helpful to have the freezer and an extra refrigerator. Okay, the next appliance I wanted to mention is my blender right here. This is Blendtec, And I just picked a cool bottom. I was being adventurous that day, which I'm not very often. And it was between this and maybe the Ninja. I'm trying to remember. There's a few other expensive blenders that do a really good job. And I don't necessarily need all the like little attachments and all that. Some of them are nice, like the teeny little food processors are nice when you just have teeny little jobs to do, or like nuts to blend up or something. But I'm like, I just really don't want all those little things everywhere. And so I decided on the Blendtec. I really loved it actually. We've had this for a couple of years, I think. Again, it's another expensive purchase, and we went a really long time without a blender. I tried to make it work in other ways, or I use this a lot for German pancakes, like to mix up the batter. And I would just mix it by hand before, like obviously there's things you can do. And then what else? Like we make more smoothies now, especially because that's the best way to get a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables into my kids and my toddler. So things like that, I use it way more to blend up soups. I just use it way more than I thought. Like I bought it, like we're gonna have to use this. And then I end up using it way more than I ever thought I would. So I feel like this is another one that's really good. And I got the bigger cup, whatever this is called. I think there's this a little bit smaller one that's more rounded. I can't really remember. And it has, I don't know if it's a lifetime guarantee, but they're very, very good about fixing things. Like if something breaks, you can send it in and they'll replace it and everything, which is another reason that I wanted to go with Blendtec. Okay, the next one, you guys are like, wow, she's just going. This is maximalist for sure. This is a rice cooker, and I've had this for at least 7+ years. I don't remember before that. I don't remember exactly when I got it. I had another one before that, and we moved, and it got like a humongous dent in the side and never worked as well. But I've basically had a rice cooker our whole marriage. And I can cook rice on the stove. I don't like to. I'm not very good at it. And I have to be watching it to an extent. And this, I just can, if I'm running out the door but we need rice for dinner, I just throw it in. And it has like a quick rice button, which works really well for white rice. And I can just push that. It has a brown rice. And the other thing I love about it, this one in particular, which I think was originally from Costco, I'm not really sure. They have super huge rice cookers. Has a steaming basket. I use this so much. You just put a little water in the bottom of the main bowl, and then broccoli all the time. I cook broccoli in it all the time, and it has a steam button, so you just push it, and if they're not quite cooked, you can turn it on again. Usually it's like 1.5. Why don't they have a 1.5 button, okay? Let's get the timing right on this like a toaster. So anyways, I really love the rice cooker. I honestly have no idea what they cost right now, and it probably depends on what kind you want to get. But it is something I use all the time. Sometimes I will have my rice cooker, my crock pot, and my Instant Pot all out cooking things because they just work so well, and it's hands off, which with a mom of 6 who homeschools, I need as much stuff that can just kind of cook itself without me having to be involved in it constantly, because I just am so busy with all my kids, or I want to go outside and still have dinner ready. So these things are so helpful for me. All right, the next appliance is an Instant Pot. And this thing is 6 or 7 years old, I think. And it was actually, my mom sent it to me for a birthday present. I think it was $100. Again, I don't know how much they are now. It's been through the ringer. Like this knob is melted right here from being too close to the stove, I think. But I really like this. I don't always use it for the typical thing. Like you can cook rice in this too. I don't think I ever have. But there are several recipes that I do like to cook in here. There's like butter chicken. There's taco meat that comes out really nice when you cook it in here. I've recently started doing mashed potatoes again, so I don't have to watch them on the stove. I just put the potatoes in here with water and just let it cook, and then I can just mash them up instead of having to constantly be monitoring them on the stove. So I don't use it for all the things, like my mom uses it way more than I do, but you can cook beans in here. I've done that before. I'm trying to think of all the different things. And I do like that it has a saute function, so you can just cook everything in the one pot. You don't have to dirty multiple things. And so you just cook it in the one pot. You know, if you need to saute, cook anything, and then you turn on the pressure cooker. It has other things obviously, but like I said, I don't use most of these other buttons like for meats and stews. It has a slow cooker. The one time I really tried to use a slow cooker, I didn't really like it. So I haven't used it for all those things, but the things that I do use it for, I have really enjoyed it. And again, it was a gift to me. I don't know if at that time I would have bought it. This time, maybe I would have bought it, but it's still going strong. It's getting old and it's maybe a little beat up, but it still works and I really love it. Okay, we're getting down to the wire. There's just 2 things left. You're like, thank heavens, this is a really long video. Is a crock pot. This is new, okay? I've had several crock pots over our lifespan, over our marriage. And I can't remember what happened to the one before the last one. I think I just wanted one that was digital, like that I could type in the numbers and have it like go for a certain amount of time, whereas the one before that just had the knob that turned it on high or low. And that one might have been a wedding gift. I don't remember. But my recent digital one is on the fritz. The crock pot itself still works, but the timer thing is really hard to get it. I like don't know what time it is set at, so I'll just keep pushing the button, hoping that it just goes for a really long time until I turn it off, because I just can't read it. It's all messed up. And so I kept it just because if we're having gatherings or something that I need to warm things up, it still will work for that. But for just normal day stuff, I was looking for one that could saute, because I'm like, that's really cool. So many crock pot recipes want you to saute or like cook, sear is the word I'm looking for, sear the meat and then put it in the crock pot. And I'm like, I don't want to get this pan and then do this and then like, so I just don't. And I think most of the time it's fine. But this one has all these settings. I saw this at Sam's Club. I think it was $100, which was way cheaper than some of the other ones I was looking at. So I just got it. We've used it like twice, but it has a few different settings. So it has a slow cooker, it has the sear and saute, which I did use recently. We cooked some like pulled pork basically, and I seared it. I gotta turn it this way. Ooh, rumble in the jungle over here. It has a steam setting. So in here, it has a steam basket. So this is nice because I showed you the rice cooker. My kids are screaming. I'm sorry if you can hear that. I showed you the rice cooker, but for our family, as we're getting bigger, that's a little bit small. Like sometimes it's okay now, but as all my kids get older, it won't be. So this one's way bigger. So I could put a lot of broccoli in here at one time and have it steam. And then it also could do sous vide if you want. Like we don't have I can't even remember what they're called. Like they suck the air out of the meat, you know, because you have to have the meat in a bag that's, what is it called? I don't know. My husband had to think of the word the other day because I was just like, I can't think of it. So we don't have one of those, but you could put the water in here and sous vide meat if you want to do that. It has braise, it has bake. I think there was some like bread recipes, even proof, which is super cool. I haven't used that one yet. I should try that one because I'm always like preheating my oven and then turning it off when it's a cooler day or colder in the house, or when I need bread to be quick. And so the fact that this could proof is great. I really like I know it seems a little bit bulkier, like it is bulkier than just a normal crock pot, but I like this. This is a really good size dish. I like how the sides are, it's like more rectangular, which is really nice. And it's so easy to clean. Like it's almost like a stainless steel type of, not stainless, that's not what we're looking for. Like Teflon, is that what it's even called? I don't know. It's super easy to clean. I really liked it the couple times we've used it. And so I think having a good crock pot that you can just let it sit and go and it has enough space for my whole family is really great. All right, so the last appliance I wanted to mention is our air fryer, which I feel like I mentioned this maybe in a favorites video recently. I don't really remember for sure. And I mentioned in that video that for a long time, we didn't use our air fryer. Like I got it because my mom had made something. I was like, this is so good. She had fried like air fried potatoes. And then I tried that and we made a few chicken nuggets and then I just didn't use it for a really long time. And then I started making French toast sticks for my kids and putting them in the freezer, and that's how they'd reheat them, was in the air fryer. And lately I've been on a potato kick. Because it's like it's a better carbohydrate than some, and the macros are good. And I just put them in the air fryer with a little seasoning, and they're so delicious. And we use it for chicken nuggets, and we've used it, salmon bites. Those are also delicious. We just did that recently where you cut salmon up and put some seasoning on them and put it in the air fryer, and then serve it with like sriracha mayo and some cucumbers and carrots or whatever other toppings you want. Delicious. I love the air fryer. We don't have a fancy one, and it just sits up in my pantry. It doesn't look pretty or anything. It looks like a big spaceship, sort of like a big egg spaceship. But it works well, and it was not super expensive. It was like a cheaper one from Sam's Club or Costco, and probably Sam's Club because that's what was around here until recently. We got a Costco. So I have loved the air fryer. I think especially if you want something easy for like your kids to warm up chicken nuggets. Like, it still gets hot, but it's not quite the same as the oven, and the oven heats the whole house, right? So in the summer, a lot of these appliances are good as well, because you're not heating your whole house by turning on the oven. You can just put the stuff in, and younger kids could use an air fryer if they had an older sibling helping or whatever, if you don't want them doing as much stuff with the oven. I feel like having an air fryer is a really good option. All right, so those are my big ticket kitchen items that I think are worth the cost. Obviously, not all at once, because that's a lot. That's really expensive. But just over time, as you're really considering, like being intentional about what you're using your kitchen for, what appliances you want or need, I feel like these are all really good options. And long term, I've continued to use all of them. They've worked well, and I just think that they were worth the money that I paid for them. We're getting our money's worth out of them. So if you enjoy this type of video and like more kitchen videos or like cooking food in the kitchen, I might do more of those probably after my ankle surgery. But if you enjoy those types of things, give me a thumbs up so I will know to make more, and I will see you next time.